Come and read more of my works on the website under Yuan keywords of the novel. After the return of a top-tier superstar, she is favored by a multifaceted actor without any pop-ups. After the return of a top-tier superstar, she is favored by a multifaceted actor and taken to the sky. Download the full text. After the return of a top-tier superstar, she is favored by a multifaceted actor and taken to the sky. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Memories. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Memories. The 00620 system wishes the host a happy life in the future, and the system will be separated after 3 beeps. The sound of the system is rare and serious, probably with a hint of sadness of parting. In the pitch-black and quiet villa, there was a wheelchair quietly placed outside the only illuminated dressing room. Inside, Sun Wan looked at her slender and straight legs in the mirror and touched her radiant face, with a hint of a smile on her face. She whispered, "Thank you, 00620. Goodbye." Unfortunately, there was no noisy system to answer her this time, and the buzzing sound of the host processing files during program uninstallation echoed in her mind. After 3 beeps of beep, 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 the world fell into silence. Sun Wan sat down on the sofa, but suddenly her phone rang. Seeing the words "sister" displayed on it, Sun Wan frowned slightly and answered the phone. She didn't speak either, so she quietly turned on hands-free, wanting to see her half-sister Sun Yao Niao, who loved to be a demon, before she went on a fast-dressing mission to heal her legs. "Sister, thank you so much." A cheerful female voice came from across, her voice very sweet, but always giving a very artificial feeling. Sun Wan didn't want to speak, and the atmosphere fell into silence for a moment. But Sun Yao Niao didn't care and continued on her own. "Sister, I know Yuan is a company left for you by Auntie, and it means a lot to you. So, I was really moved that you were willing to give Yuan the name of my studio. Thank you for agreeing to Shengyan's proposal." Yuan Niao Niao. She seemed to ponder for a moment before suddenly feeling guilty and saying, "Ah. Sister, did I disturb your rest? I'm sorry. You see, I'm so happy that I forgot that my sister is still treating her legs abroad and there's a time difference with China. But my sister will be back tomorrow, right? I'll go pick you up." Before she could finish speaking, Sun Wan interrupted her and said, "Have you finished speaking? I'll hang up once I finish speaking." Sun Wan pressed the call directly and flipped through the voice message that Mrs. Sheng had sent her 2 days ago. "Nuan, Grandpa is seriously ill and he wants to see you. Auntie knows that your child is strong, but let's put aside the leg treatment for now. You have been outside for 3 years and everyone misses you very much. Can you come back and take a look these days?" Sun Wan threw her phone aside and finally remembered that in her original world, besides leg problems, there were still a lot of troubles waiting for her. "Shengyan, Sun Yao Niao." Sun Wan murmured. These 3 words evoked her long-forgotten memories. Sun Wan's birth mother passed away early, and Su's father married his current wife within a year. The Sheng family's grandfather, who had a good relationship with Sun Wan's grandfather, was worried that Sun Wan would be bullied at home, so he took the initiative to arrange a baby marriage for Sun Wan and Shengyan. Unfortunately, Shengyan didn't like her. She had been thinking about healing her legs for Shengyan's sake, but with so many people passing through the world, the spring water in her childhood had already turned into a peaceful deep pool. "Fortunately, it's just an engagement and I haven't really gotten married yet. Fortunately, they don't know that my legs are already good. It's better to handle this unpleasant engagement for both parties earlier, just saying that my legs are not good enough to match Shengyan." Sun Wan lay down on the bed, making up her mind before closing her eyes. The next day, the airport. Sun Wan sat quietly in her wheelchair, enjoying the service. Before leaving, the system booked her flight and even arranged the wheelchair service that needed to be booked in advance. It was really thoughtful. Unfortunately, first class has been fully booked and only business class seats can be taken. Soon Won, who has limited mobility, was lifted to her seat by a tall and beautiful flight attendant. Next to her sat a middle-aged Mediterranean with a famous brand all over her body. "Oh, it's rare to see a young girl in the business class," he said as he looked at Soon Won's legs and suddenly realized, she came here for an upgrade. He said meaningfully, then reached out his hand, acknowledging himself as a handsome gentleman, and deliberately revealed the watch with a bright logo on it. He looked friendly and said, "Let me introduce myself. My name is Zhang Jingguo, and I'm here on a business trip." "Are you an international student, little girl? Why are you having bad legs? Why is your family letting you come out alone?" Soon Won opened her mouth slightly and wanted to say, "Can we be quiet for a while?" But the Mediterranean clearly did not intend to stop his greasy speech. "Alas, I understand. It's pitiful that my parents feel sorry for me. If I could come out to study abroad, I must have spent more than half of my life savings. I just want my own girl to see the world. Little girl, if there's anything I need to do later, I'll come to you." "Zhang, I'll do it. You see how hard the flight attendant is to hold you, by the way, and this." Mediterranean stuffed a business card into Soon Won's hand, with a deep meaning on its face and a hint, saying, "This is your business card, Zhang Gu, and mine. In the future, if you encounter any difficulties when returning to the country, you can come to me. You see, the feeling of flying business class is different from that of economy class, right? Soon Won. What's wrong with this scumbag's brain, adding drama to himself everywhere?" Soon Won was also a bit angry in her heart. As a fast-dressing tycoon, how could she not master the essential skill of slapping the face? But just as she was about to speak up and fight back, a flight attendant walked over with a smile on her face and bent down to say to her, "Hello, Ms. Su, would you like to switch to first class?" The Mediterranean next to him immediately asked with various displeasure and dissatisfaction, "What? Why did you upgrade twice? What's wrong with your airline? The upgrade rules are too casual, right? I'm a senior VIP and haven't seen you upgrade me." Soon Won was also stunned and said, "Didn't it mean that the first-class cabin was fully booked?" After she finished speaking, Mediterranean looked at her in surprise again, probably not expecting that the poor international student would even inquire about the first-class cabin. He immediately sneered and waited for the flight attendant to answer. The flight attendant smiled and pointed to the front door of the first-class cabin. A figure of Qin Jun, who was also sitting in a wheelchair, said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Zhang. Miss Su bought business class and did not upgrade. As for first class, it was also the gentleman who was willing to give up the one he booked for Miss Su." Mediterranean hesitated for a moment upon hearing the words, then looked at Soon Won with his eyes, and suddenly showed an inexplicable smile. Yin Yang said in a strange tone, "I can't tell that you can be favored by wealthy people just by getting on the plane. Little girl, at a young age, don't always think about getting something for nothing." Soon Won was about to curse, wondering what was going on with this person, but before she could curse, the figure of Qin Jun was suddenly pushed over by the bodyguard. He has a pale face and light lips, but his handsome eyebrows and eyes make one feel his extraordinary luxury even when sitting in a wheelchair. He stared at Soon Won, his gaze momentarily distant, and then his lips parted slightly. The cold and pleasant sound spread to the ears of everyone present, causing a tingling sensation in his heart. He said, "Warm, come here." Soon Won was also stunned as she looked at him and said in a daze, "Uncle." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Dirty Thoughts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Dirty Thoughts. Upon hearing this, the Mediterranean's face turned pale and blue. How could it be a relative? Now it's okay, everyone in business class knows his dirty thoughts. When he boarded the plane, he looked around several times and saw several industry experts who were not too flashy and were originally planning to get close to him. Now. Mediterranean looked at the little girl being pushed away, her face turned pale as death. Sun Wan sat on the pristine and soft bed in the first-class cabin, looking inexplicably at the sudden appearance of Uncle Xing Jinyan. She couldn't help but ask, "Uncle, are you also going back to see Grandpa Sheng?" To be honest, Xing Jinyan is just like a background board, and Sun Wan has only met him once. Moreover, there are rumors that Xing Jinyan went abroad to recuperate before, and his relationship with the Xing family is not very good. Why originally, Sun Wan was just asking a question, but he didn't expect Xing Jinyan, who looked extremely cold, to answer her question. However, Xing Jinyan asked the flight attendant to get a blanket and covered it for her while saying, That action flowed smoothly and in one go, making Sun Wan inexplicably feel a bit familiar in her heart, and there was something inexplicable strange about it. "Thank you, Uncle." After Sun Wan finished speaking, Xing Jinyan didn't speak and just looked at her, causing an awkward atmosphere. As a fast-wearing expert, Sun Wan was originally not good at it, but Xing Jinyan's aura was very similar to a strategic target in the immortal world in the past. He was a sword immortal expert, and looking at him gave people a feeling of unknowingly fierce. "Uncle, can I sleep for a while?" Sun Wan was almost unable to hold on. With another sound, Sun Wan closed the partition and breathed a sigh of relief. She was indeed a bit tired, only lying down for a while before falling asleep. The occasional swaying of the plane feels like sitting on a ferry boat. I don't know how long I slept. Half asleep and half awake, it seemed like someone had helped her take off her shoes and covered her with an extra blanket. Finally, I gazed at her and sighed softly, I still can't take care of myself. After speaking, the person was about to gently close the partition when a delicate white hand grabbed the corner of their clothes. However, Sun Wan once again dreamt of the heartbreaking history of the Sword Immortal strategy. The difficulty level was so high that he was closing his eyes and trying to strategize. Therefore, Sun Wan pondered and muttered, "Master, don't leave." Xing Jinyan's hand suddenly stopped, and he stared at Sun Wan for a while before finally closing the partition. When Sun Wan woke up again and the plane was about to land, she hurriedly washed up and ate something before being pushed off the plane by Xing Jinyan's bodyguard. The airport pick-up hall was bustling with people, and I don't know if there were other celebrities getting off the plane. A group of fans holding their phones and cameras were very lively. But when Sun Wan found them shouting "Niao Niao" in their mouths, he felt something was wrong. Sure enough, a woman wearing sunglasses and a mask ran towards her and shouted, "Sister, I'm sorry, I don't know why they knew about my itinerary." Sun Wan. If she still can't see that Sun Niao Niao is trying to use her for hype, then there's a ghost. Tomorrow, no later than afternoon, it will be overwhelming with new little Queen Sun Niao Niao, appearing at the airport to welcome her disabled sister, beautiful and kind-hearted Sun Niao Niao. Her character never relies on makeup. Sun Wan immediately wanted to turn around, but she was still sitting in a wheelchair pretending to be disabled in order to get out of marriage. She suddenly felt a chill in her heart. Later, as she was thinking of giving up and avoiding Sun Niao Niao, Xing Jinyan next to her instructed the bodyguard, "Leave 2 people behind and push me there. The others will take Miss Su back." Xing Jinyan pointed to the center of Sun Niao Niao's fan route. Sun Wan was taken aback and suddenly remembered that Xing Jinyan seemed to have had the status of an actor before, but due to illness and cultivation, he bravely retreated. Now that he has been exposed in front of people, isn't it, Xing Jinyan, you? But before she could fully oppose it, she was pushed by the bodyguard to take the elevator to the parking lot. The elevator was transparent and could be clearly seen before landing. Fans and paparazzi who were originally chasing Sun Niao Niao burst into cheers and screams when they saw Xing Jinyan. Is that Xing Jinyan? Has he come back? What? Xing Jinyan. Where is it? Right in front of Sun Niao Niao. Ah, he looked at me. Then, like Moses dividing the sea, a group of people bypassed Su Niao and headed straight for Xing Jinyan. Su Niao's face suddenly froze, and all the nervousness and anxiety she portrayed froze on her face. At this moment, fake laughter queen Su Niao unleashed her amazing acting skills and demonstrated her ability to perform the comedic effect of using the term neglected in the courtroom. Sun Wan was shocked to see the paparazzi brothers standing in the elevator, taking crazy photos and writing like a god. While muttering and flying fast, he gave him a thumbs up and said, "Amazing." The paparazzi brothers rarely met their confidants and couldn't help but laugh arrogantly, really. After Sun Wan was escorted home by Xing Jinyan's bodyguard for a long time, he heard the sound of parking and opening the door downstairs, followed by the sound of high heels going upstairs. Dudu, the bedroom door was knocked on. Sun Wan was well prepared and said, "Please come in." Su Niao pushed open the door and said wrongly, "Sister, it was agreed that I would pick you up. Why didn't you wait for me just now? I've been surrounded by fans so hard." Sun Wan was surprised and said, "Ah. Didn't they all go to see Xing Jinyan from behind? Who surrounded you?" Sun Yao's face stiffened. Why has Sun Wan changed so much? Is she mocking herself? But just like how she used to look, how dare she say back? Su Niao was not worried in her heart, but for the sake of her future goals, she pretended to pull her face and smile, saying, "Do you still have it? Let's not talk about it anymore. Dad said he will go see Grandpa Xing later. Are you ready?" Sun Wan said calmly, "You're ready. Do you have anything else to do? Sister, why are you so cold? I see you haven't had a good time abroad these past few years, have you?" Su Niao's tone suddenly changed and she looked at Sun Wan with a smile. Sun Wan was stunned. She was wearing something, so she shouldn't have left any trace in this world in the past 2 years. And the system said that everything has been sorted out in the future, right? How, what does it mean? Sun Wan was a bit puzzled. What do I mean, sister? Don't you know? I found the sanatorium where my sister went to see her, and your attending doctor said you don't live there at all. Where did your sister go? Maybe it's not leg treatment, but who did you hang out with? Su Niao stared maliciously at Sun Wan in her eyes. Sun Wan remained silent for a moment, feeling that Su Niao was in the inner system. After a long time, she raised her eyebrows slightly and asked, "So what do you want?" End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Getting More Proud. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Getting More Proud. Su Niao saw Sun Wan's silence and felt that it was true, so she became even more proud. She curled her lips and smiled, "I just wanted to care about my sister. She still remembers why she went abroad to have her leg treated before. Unfortunately, my sister has been treating her leg for so long, and I haven't seen any improvement." In fact, Sun Wan had an answer in her heart. Previously, she wanted to match Xing'an, but now, TSK, who she loves although Xing'an, the fiancé AE picked up from the garbage dump, is a perfect match for someone like Su Niao. How could she be able to make Su Niao's wish come true just because she's almost dressed up like a big shot? The matter of Yu'in has not been settled with her yet. Su Nuantan's fashion outfit turned pale and whispered, "What exactly do you mean?" When Su Niao saw that Sun Wan had returned to her previous timid appearance, she felt a sense of relief. She said, "Well, how could someone like Sun Wan have changed so much in these years? Just now, it was just a fierce and insincere act." "What do I mean? What do I mean is that my sister is so disabled, how can she be worthy of Xing'an Gu? Instead of stubbornly clinging to Xing'an Gu and making him hate you even more, it's better for her to give up this engagement as soon as possible, isn't it?" Sun Wan looked at her coldly, smiling in her heart, but her face looked very injured and remained silent. Su Niao saw that her goal had been achieved and drifted away. Sun Wan quickly turned on the computer, typing a dazzling series of codes on the keyboard with her fingers. Until Sue's father downstairs called them down, Sun Wan copied the information proving her whereabouts over the past few years into a USB drive. Before Su Niao Niao entered, she closed her computer and looked as if nothing had happened. As for Su Niao Niao pushing Sun Wan into the elevator and continuing to exert pressure on her, she looked at Sun Wan disdainfully and whispered in her ear, "Sister, you must think carefully. As long as you voluntarily withdraw, I won't reveal this matter." At the back of the elevator door, Sue's father was very pleased to see the two sisters helping each other. He also said to Sue, "You know how to pick up your sister today." Sun Wan sneered in her heart and glanced coldly at Su Niao Niao, who was beaming with joy, hoping that she would still be proud in the future. As soon as the Su family's car drove into the Sheng family, it was warmly welcomed. Mrs. Sheng rushed out of the door with great enthusiasm. She looked at Sun Wan in the wheelchair and her eyes turned red. "Nwan, you. Sigh, it's okay. With an aunt, uncle, and grandfather around, if you enter our house in the future, Shingen will never dare to bully you. Isn't it?" She spoke and patted Shingen, who had arrived late. Shingen gave Sun Wan a cold glance without saying a word, but his gaze fell on Su Niao Niao. Su Niao Niao looked at Sun Wan with jealousy until she met Sheng An's 4 eyes and her cheeks turned red. Shingen curled his lips and smiled. Mrs. Sheng, who was listening to chatter next to her, suddenly saw the frowns of scumbags and cheap women, which made Sun Wan feel a chill. She quickly grabbed Mrs. Sheng's hand and said, "Aunt Sheng, let's go up quickly. How is Grandpa's situation?" Mrs. Sheng held Sun Wan's hand tightly and secretly wiped away her tears. She got up and pushed Sun Wan's wheelchair towards the room, whispering, "Nwan, the doctor said it's not good anymore. The old man's wish now is to see you and Jin Yen." Sun Wan exclaimed curiously, "Uncle. Has he come back yet?" Mrs. Sheng nodded and said, "I just came back and have already gone to the old man's place." Sun Wan exclaimed, "Oh," and thought of Mr. Sheng, who was just like his own granddaughter with her. His heart also felt a tinge of sourness, and he hesitated for a moment about his withdrawal. When Mrs. Sheng pushed her into the old man's room and saw the old man surrounded by cold instruments, she felt a pain in her heart and whispered, "Grandpa." The skinny old man on the bed suddenly opened his eyes, his gaze still clear. He struggled to turn his head towards Sun Wan, waving hard, and blurring in his throat, "Nuanyuan, is it Nuanyuan?" Sun Wan's tears immediately fell from her eyes. She turned the wheel and rushed to Grandpa Sheng's side, holding his hand and saying, "It's me, Grandpa." Mr. Sheng suddenly smiled. His skinny hand touched Sun Wan's face and continued to smile, "Nwan, Grandpa only has one wish now. Are you willing to agree to Grandpa?" Sun Wan tightly held his hand and promised, "Okay, whatever Grandpa says, Nwan will do." The old man patted her hand and waved to Shingen, "Shingen, come on." Sun Wan's heart suddenly twitched twice. Shingen was reluctant to stay with Sun Wan in his heart, but obediently walked to the bedside, so his hand was pulled by Mr. Sheng and placed with Sun Wan's hand. "Grandpa's only wish now is to see you two get married and see us get married in a warm and beautiful manner. Shingen, you will make Nuanyuan happy, won't you?" Mr. Sheng finished speaking a long paragraph off and on, and suddenly felt a bit weak. But the atmosphere in the room suddenly became somewhat stagnant. Sun Wan felt an undeniable strong gaze fixed on her. She thought it was Su Niao Niao, but unexpectedly, Sheng Jin Yen sat quietly on the corner sofa, causing Sun Wan some confusion. Shingen, who touched the soft palm of his hand, was stunned at the words. He turned his head and glanced at Su Niao Niao, who was full of jealousy and disbelief. Then, following her fair arm, she glanced at Sun Wan's profile, as calm and beautiful as ever, and her heart moved. Just as she was about to say the 3 words, "I will," she was interrupted by Sun Wan. "Grandpa, I I can't. Let's not count on the engagement. Sun Wan lowered her head, tears streaming down her clothes, her voice trembling faintly. There was another suppressed silence in the room, while Sun Yao felt a hint of joy, but what she didn't expect was. Mr. Xing trembled and wiped Sun Wan's tears, looking sternly at Xing'an and saying, Nuan, did Xing'an bully you? Sun Wan quickly waved her hand and said, no, it's my problem. It's just that my legs haven't healed yet. I don't think I deserve Xing'an, and I don't want Xing'an to be in trouble. Nuanyuan, why do you think so? The old man looked at Sun Wan with heartache and then coldly said to the Su family behind the crowd, did someone say something next to you? Tell Grandpa will make the decision for you. So Sun Wan glanced at Sun Yao and hesitated to speak. After Sun Yao met Mr. Xing's skeptical gaze, she couldn't help but whisper, today I just asked about my sister's leg disease, but I didn't expect her to misunderstand. And I was also worried about her, so I called the sanatorium to understand the situation. But I didn't expect. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Silence. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Silence. Sun Yao bit her lips and glanced at Sun Wan, saying, but after I called and asked, the sanatorium said there's no one like sister at all, so where have sister been these years? There was a sudden silence on the scene, and everyone could sense the unfinished meaning of Sun Yao. Xing Andan looked at Sun Wan with suspicion and withdrew his hand from Sun Wan's hand. Mr. Sheng looked at Sun Wan with questioning, seemingly not believing Sun Yao's words at all. Sun Wan's heart was warm, but when she wanted to reveal the evidence of herself being handcuffed on a USB drive, someone suddenly spoke up. The voice remained as cold as ever. When Nuanyuan was abroad, we shared a sanatorium that was not open to the public and had strict management. Medical staff could not disclose their employer's information without permission. Upon hearing the sound, everyone looked over and saw that it was Xing Jinyan, who had not spoken since entering the door. His face was pale, with a weak and sickly appearance, but his aura was surprisingly convincing. And what he just said was that it was impossible for Sun Yao to directly inquire about Sun Wan's situation when she called, so Sun Yao was either lying or deliberately investigating Sun Wan. Sun Wan. This kind of visually appealing scene always feels like it has happened many times, so why does Xing Jinyan always resort to the cliché hero to save the beauty? As a fast-dressing tycoon, can't she speak up for herself? Everyone looked at Sun Yao's expression and suddenly felt strange. Sun Yao didn't expect Xing Jinyan to speak for Sun Wan, and even targeted her every word, causing her face to turn pale. But she could only defend herself by saying, so it's like this. If I cared, it would be chaotic. I probably remembered the phone number of another nursing home. The crowd ignored her because Xing Jinyan spoke again. Nuanyuan has been going through a lot of hard work these years to treat her legs. In just 2 sentences, someone was sad. Mrs. Xing immediately wiped tears and said, Nuan, I really hurt you. Mr. Xing also coughed excitedly several times and said, Nuanyuan, you stubborn child. You had to go abroad to see your legs yourself, but after suffering and being tired, you wouldn't say anything to others. Now that you want to get out of wedlock, how can Grandpa stay with you on the bus? He became increasingly sad as he spoke, panting heavily, and his arms trembled violently. Sun Wan immediately burst into tears. She wanted to cancel her engagement by pretending to be disabled, but it made the people who cared about her even more worried. Ultimately, it was her selfishness. She immediately grabbed the old man's old hand and comforted him, Grandpa, don't be sad. I'm actually doing okay too. Sun Wan glanced at Xing Jinyan and explained, Uncle takes good care of me. Upon hearing this, Jinyan's lips curled slightly imperceptibly. When Grandpa Xing fell asleep, his father, mother, and Father Su had something to talk about, so they let the younger generation go to eat. However, there was some silence at the dinner table due to the previous incident, and their thoughts were different. The first person to speak was Su Niao Niao. I said, why would my sister get off the plane with my uncle? I already know her so well. Sun Wan felt nauseous when she heard her slutty words. It happened that the previous situation could be resolved now. She pointed to Xing'ani and said, I'm not familiar with uncle, it's none of your business. But Xing'ani, I heard that you're going to transfer the afterword left by my mother to my sister to open a studio. Xing'an frowned and said, Yu Yin has been in a long-term loss-making state for the past 2 years, so I have revised the plan. Coincidentally, Niao Niao also intends to invest, so I want to reopen it under the name of the studio. Oh, Xing'an, even though I handed over Yu Yin to you before going abroad, its legal representative is still me, right? Now, I clearly say that I don't think Yu Yin needs to be rectified. This loss-making company, I want to take it back now. Sun Wan glanced at Su Niao Niao's instantly ugly face and said leisurely. Xing Anduan looked up at Sun Wan, as if with a sense of scrutiny, but before he could speak, Su Niao Niao began to feel aggrieved and said, Why, sister? Do you just want to see Auntie's company go down like this? Does sister not trust me to revive the afterglow? Xing'an also questioned, I can give you the remaining sound, but do you know how to manage it? Sun Wan rolled her eyes and said, I know I may not be good at managing things, but this company means a lot to me. It was left by my grandfather to my mother, and then by my mother to me. The word Yu Yin represents the continuous inheritance and development of my family, and there are more than just lingering sounds. I don't want others to see the word Yu Yin in the future, but think of something else. Upon hearing this, Su Niao Niao, who was labeled as something else, immediately stiffened and said unwillingly, So, sister, can't you just keep watching it lose money? We're all family, can't sister give me a chance? Sun Wan immediately shrugged and said straightforwardly, It's not really your business whether I'm losing money or not. Sister, or rather, I like to lose money. As far as the shares left by my grandfather are concerned, this loss is not a big deal, so you can understand. I just don't want it to be touched by anything else, I just want to take care of it myself and keep some thoughts. Sun Wan looked at her with a smile and swung his last punch, saying, And sister, you better figure out one thing. Even if you call me sister and I call you sister, in reality, you and I are not family. Please remember, so I don't need to give you a chance, and I don't give you a chance. Aren't you sure why, sister? Su Niao Niao couldn't help but say, Why? You're not popular enough. As soon as these words were spoken, the dining table fell silent. Sun Wan lazily blew on the soup bowl, took a sip, and her eyes lit up. Sure enough, Aunt Xing's soup tasted the best. Xing Jinyan saw that she had drunk a bowl, so he gave her another bowl. Sun Wan looked at Xing Jinyan with confusion once again, feeling that this time he seemed to be the strategic goal of revitalizing his traditional culinary skills. On the other side, Su Niao Niao's eyes turned red as she looked at Xing'an and said, I'm not popular enough. What kind of artist does that sister want to sign? Just like Yu Yin is now, besides me, can you sign any decent artist? Xing'an also looked at Sun Wan displeased and said, Sun Wan, signing an artist is not a luxury item for you. Top-tier artists are rare and hard to come by. Niao Niao is willing to help you. But before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted. Sun Wan looked at Su Niao Niao with a smile on her face and said, Sister, I don't know. Do you remember when you picked up the plane? Su Niao Niao remembered the way fans were running towards Xing Jinyan at that time, and her face immediately turned black. Sun Wan immediately smiled and said, My company, of course, if you sign, you have to sign someone with the highest level of strength like uncle. Xing Jinyan's hand holding chopsticks paused and said, Sun Wan. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Feeling of holding back. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 5. Feeling of holding back. The dining table fell silent once again, with 3 pairs of eyes brushing together as they looked at the man who had been somewhat reserved since he was served, but could not be ignored. Sun Quan looked at Xing Jinyan with a strange expression, coming and going again, feeling that her dignity as a big shot had been provoked again. This feeling of frustration that she couldn't face her own fate. Fortunately, the silent atmosphere was broken by Sheng's and Su's parents who went downstairs. Sheng's mother lovingly touched Sun Wan's head and said, "Nuan Nuan, are you eating well? Grandpa is awake, looking for you." Sun Wan immediately nodded and said, "Then I'll go see Grandpa." Madame Sheng immediately glanced at Sun Yao Niao, who was almost leaning against Sheng An's embrace, and instructed, "Sheng'an, please push Nuanyuan up." Sheng'an had just been scolded by Sun Wan, and he was actually not very happy in his heart, but after looking at Sun Wan Jiao's good face, he still stood up. Just as I was about to reach for the wheelchair back, I was knocked off by another slender and beautiful hand. The eyes of the crowd once again gathered on Xing Jinyan, who had just stood up from the wheelchair and said, Father Sheng's expression went blank for 3 seconds. "Jinyan, your legs are fine." Xing Jinyan pushed Sun Wan's wheelchair forward directly, and the accompanying doctor with a smirk explained, "Jinyan usually uses a wheelchair because his body is weak and his legs are fine." The doctor had a fake smile on his face and a lot of sarcasm in his heart. To put it simply, he likes to add drama to himself. On the 2nd floor, Xing Jinyan pushed Sun Wan all the way to the old man's ward. Sun Wan couldn't help but ask, "Uncle, what you just meant was, are you willing to sign a contract with Yuan?" Xing Jinyan replied coldly in front of Sun Wan. Sun Wan began to babble and advise, "Uncle, thank you really. You helped me several times today, but my health is my own. The artist's job is too tiring, so don't force yourself." Anyway, in summary, her words are, "Uncle, I don't think you can do it." Xing Jinyan looked down from Sun Wan's head and answered, "I can." After he finished speaking, the old man's room arrived, and Sun Wan's words were also intercepted for a moment. She sighed in her heart that the young man was really a good person, and decided to continue persuading him later. Inside, the old man slept for a while and his spirits improved a lot. Seeing Sun Wan and Xing Jinyan together, he became even happier. He took Sun Wan's hand and advised, "Nuan Nuan, you have a knot in your heart now. You don't want to marry Sheng'an, and Grandpa doesn't force you either. However, your leg still needs to be treated." As soon as Mr. Sheng spoke these words, Sun Wan's intuition was not very good. Sure enough, the old man looked at her tenderly. The next sentence was, "Nuan Nuan, Grandpa saw that your treatment in foreign countries was ineffective. I just asked Uncle Sheng to call a doctor who is very skilled in this field in our country. He will come over later and promise Grandpa not to be stubborn. Let him see, okay? What is a bolt from the blue? This is a bolt from the blue. Hee, Grandpa, why are you so embarrassed?" Sun Wan's face stiffened, and she instinctively touched her legs. Take a look at the hammer, her legs have already healed, but Mr. Sheng is full of love and care. How can she tell him directly that this is all deception? So, never lie, because a lie often requires countless lies to make up for it. Sun Wan suddenly felt very ashamed and felt like a bad girl. But before she could come up with a solution, there was a car coming in downstairs, and Xing Mu's surprised voice came from the walkie-talkie. "Warm and warm, the doctor will come up soon. Please wait patiently. Sun Wan. She just wants to die in society right now. What kind of human suffering is this? She just wants to get married." At this moment, the sound of "dudu" sounded outside the door, just as Sun Wan wanted to confess, just as the doctor stepped into the door and the room. Speaking late, that was fast. Xing Jinyan rushed straight to the bathroom and with a loud bang, the door was thrown against the wall. "Jinyan. Uncle. With the two screams of Sun Wan and Mr. Sheng, there was a sound of water coming from the bathroom, accompanied by the sound of dry vomiting and a muffled cough. Sun Wan looked at the old man's anxious gaze and directly slid the wheel to the bathroom, saying, "Uncle, are you okay?" The person with a lowered head next to the sound of water flow suddenly turned their head to look at Sun Wan. His face appeared pale and transparent after washing, but his lips, moistened by water, appeared exceptionally bright, with a fragile beauty. "Nuanyuan, come here." He had a low voice and looked at Sun Wan with a calm and heavy expression in his eyes. "Uncle is feeling uncomfortable." Upon hearing this, Sun Wan was stunned. Memories of passing through the world flooded her heart once again. She unconsciously slid forward and murmured, "Young master." Once upon a time, there was a strategic goal that was also like this, weak as if he would die at any moment. Sun Wan didn't know what illness Xing Jinyan was, but their figures seemed to overlap in an instant. Sun Wan's heart was in turmoil, and she whispered, "I'll go call a doctor for you." As she spoke, she struggled to turn the wheelchair and tried to slide out, but suddenly a hand grabbed her shoulder and closed the door with her long arm. Sun Wan froze, but the person behind her suddenly placed her head on her shoulder, and water droplets dripped from his hair, fainting on Sun Wan's clothes. His voice remained hoarse, for some reason with a tearful grievance. "Warmth, I feel uncomfortable." End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Seems to stop painting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 seems to stop painting in an instant. Sun Wan's brain seemed to go blank for a moment. In the same tone and words, she seemed to have heard it from another target of the quick-wire strategy. But before she could think too much, Xing Jinyan's warm breath spread evenly over her ears, making Sun Wan's whole body tremble and instinctively shrink back. "Uncle, where are you feeling unwell?" She originally intended to go out and call for a doctor to come in, but it was evident that Xing Jinyan's voice sounded really heartbreaking. Sun Wan could only stay temporarily. Here, he turned Sun Wan's wheelchair in a different direction and pulled her slender and tender hand towards his body, his pale handsome face tinged with a hint of grievance. "It hurts both." It has to be said that Xing Jinyan's actor face is still extremely impactful. At this moment, the distance between the two was only close at hand, and Sun Wan could even clearly see the small fuzz on his face, as if silently sweeping past her face, causing waves to ripple in his heart. Such a close distance made Sun Wan feel awkward, so she could only push the wheelchair back a step. "Why don't I call a doctor over to help you take a look?" As soon as the words fell, Xing Jinyan immediately frowned. "I don't like others touching me." Sun Wan suddenly remembered that he heard that Uncle Sheng from the Sheng family has always had a cleanliness obsession. After entering the entertainment industry for so many years without any scandals, it's no wonder he doesn't find a girlfriend. She was at a loss for a moment and could only stare blankly. But she never expected that Xing Jinyan would take the initiative to approach her and pull her hand to touch her abdomen. "It's not comfortable here. Can you help me rub it, Nuanyuan?" The cold fingers touched the sturdy abdomen, and Sun Wan's fingertips burned, instinctively wanting to retract their hand. But with the wet eyes of Xing Jinyan, she suddenly felt unbearable. After all, it seems that Xing Jinyan has helped her many times since she returned, so it doesn't seem like a big deal to help him rub it. Thinking this way, Sun Wan inexplicably pinched his abdomen twice. "Is this okay?" A gentle echoed between the man's lips and teeth, his face pale and almost transparent, with straight and three-dimensional features. This was a face even more delicate and beautiful than a woman's. Sun Wan silently murmured in her heart, she was just repaying kindness, not for anything else. However, Jin Yan's abdominal muscles felt so good that she forgot to retract her hand for a while. Until Grandpa Xing's urgent shout came from outside the door. "How are you, Nuanyuan? Is Jin Yan okay?" The sound shattered Sun Wan's thoughts, and she suddenly withdrew her hand as if waking up from a dream. The warmth in his arms disappeared, and Xing Jinyan's eyes instantly darkened. However, Sun Wan didn't realize it. She hurriedly called out to the door, "Uncle is feeling a bit uncomfortable, Grandpa. Why don't you ask that doctor to examine him? This way, you can just avoid getting checked for your leg injury." Sun Wan silently gave a thumbs up for her intelligence. Quickly, she helped Xing Jinyan leave the bathroom, and the doctor holding the medical kit also waited for a long time. Grandpa Xing couldn't wait and waved at them. "Hurry up and come over to check with the doctor. Jin Yan, this child is already weak, so you need to pay more attention." Xing Jinyan is very cooperative. Strangely, the doctor put on a stethoscope and gave him a brief examination of the basic items, revealing a puzzled expression. Mr. Xing seems to have no other symptoms except for his weakened body. Sun Wan, sitting in a wheelchair, was taken aback and looked over in disbelief. "I don't know. Just now, the uncle was in the bathroom retching and coughing, and he even said he had abdominal pain and cold sweat on his forehead. How could he have nothing to do?" As soon as she finished speaking, Xing Jinyan cooperated and coughed twice again. He lifted his head weakly, his pale lips convincing, "I do feel unwell. Could you please ask the doctor to examine me in more detail? After all, this is Emperor Sheng, and doctors dare not neglect him." He put on his stethoscope again and examined Xing Jinyan once, but still couldn't see the cause. Out of safety, the doctor simply took blood for testing, and gave Xing Jinyan a comprehensive physical examination inside and out. The final result is still the same. According to the blood test report, Mr. Xing does not have any other symptoms except for insufficient qi in blood and weak body. If Mr. Xing is still worried, he can go to a large hospital for another comprehensive examination another day. When he said these words, the doctor wiped the cold sweat from his face and felt a bit strange in his heart. If it's as serious as Sun Wan said, it's impossible not to be detected. Mr. Xing couldn't help but feel a bit worried. "Jin Yan, why don't we go to the hospital early tomorrow morning for another check? Up." However, at this moment, Xing Jinyan sat up straight and frowned slightly. "It doesn't seem to hurt anymore." Sun Wan. She stared blankly at Xing Jinyan, only to see him slightly move his body before looking at the doctor with a hint of apology. "It's just that I felt a bit uncomfortable just now. Since there's nothing unusual in the examination results, it should be okay." The doctor is also dumbfounded. He has never seen such a condition before. I could only smile bitterly twice. Mr. Sheng is fine. The old man's thoughts were all focused on Xing Jinyan's illness, and he suddenly forgot to show Sun Wan his legs. Until the doctor was sent away, the old man suddenly slapped his forehead. "Oh no, I forgot to ask the doctor to warm me up and take a look at my legs." Sun Wan, on the other hand, buried her head in joy and pretended to comfort Mr. Sheng by saying, "It's okay, Grandpa. My leg injury hasn't been around for a day or two, it's actually the same whether you look at it or not." She lowered her head as she spoke, as if trying to conceal the sadness in her eyes. This kind of appearance made Mr. Sheng feel even more heartbroken, and he held on to her little hand, sighing incessantly. "It's okay, it's warm. With Grandpa around, we can definitely cure your leg injury." At this moment, Sun Wan felt a little guilty for worrying the elderly about her lies. But she also has no choice. "I can't suddenly stand up from the wheelchair, it's not easy to explain why my leg injury has healed." "And the child from Shingen?" Seeing Mr. Sheng shift the topic to their marriage again, Sun Wan felt a headache when she heard it. "Grandpa." A cool and pleasant voice interrupted Mr. Sheng's words. Xing Jinyan's gentle gaze turned to Sun Wan and extended a hand towards her. "I'm a bit tired and I want to go back and rest. Would it be convenient to take me back?" Sun Wan was momentarily stunned and naturally responded. Actually, she really wants to ask, How could Xing Jinyan be so embarrassed to have a disabled person sitting in a wheelchair take him back to his room? End of this chapter. Chapter 7, I would like to add the afterword. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7, I would like to add the afterword. She just didn't say that at all. As soon as someone entered the room, Sun Wan quickly locked the door with her back hand. Xing Jinyan stood in front of her, not in a hurry, still staring at her with a smile on his face. Nuanyuan, are you looking at me like this to say something? Xing Jinyan's smile appeared friendly and harmless. When he smiled, his eyes would slightly curve, like the melting water of spring, flowing endlessly. This appearance reminded Sun Wan of another person, her target of strategy in a certain world, a younger puppy brother than her. Although he and Xing Jinyan were completely different images, Sun Wan inexplicably thought of him at this moment. Uncle, were you really feeling unwell just now? Sun Wan stared closely at him, but still asked his innermost doubts. It's not that she thinks too much, it's just that Xing Jinyan's behavior is too strange. She was already afraid of being discovered by the doctor due to leg injuries, but just as the doctor was about to enter, Xing Jinyan suddenly fell ill, and no symptoms were found afterwards. This performance made Sun Wan doubt whether Xing Jinyan intentionally did it. Nuanyuan, don't you believe me? Xing Jinyan seemed momentarily stunned by this conjecture, and then a few injuries appeared in his eyes. His expression made Sun Wan feel as if she had done something wrong to her, and a hint of guilt immediately surged in her heart. I don't mean I don't believe you, uncle, Sun Wan organized her words. It's all just a coincidence. The doctor was just about to come in, and uncle, you're feeling unwell. Just now, Grandpa hasn't finished talking to me yet, so uncle, you asked me to take you to the room. I just feel a bit strange. Although not explicitly stated, Sun Wan has become a bit more wary of Xing Jinyan. She is no longer the same Sun Wan as before. As a master who has completed countless fast-paced world missions, Sun Wan is able to immediately determine if there is something wrong with the people or things around her. Since his return, Xing Jinyan's behavior has been very strange. Xing Jinyan didn't immediately answer her question, just stared at her quietly for a while. His eyes were deep yet clear, like a clear spring. It took a long time to hear his cold voice coming. Does Nuanyuan feel that I would be detrimental to you? Sun Wan almost instinctively shook her head. No. Although Xing Jinyan's every move was indeed somewhat strange, Sun Wan did not feel any malice or hostility from him. On the contrary, among everyone's breath, Xing Jinyan is the one that makes oneself feel the most comfortable. It's just that I wasn't familiar with Uncle before. After coming back this time, Uncle helped me a lot. Even in front of Xing'an, Uncle chose to help me. In theory, you and Xing'an are the same family. In fact, in a true sense, the time on the plane was her first meeting with Xing Jinyan. Although Xing Jinyan is also a member of the Xing family, he still has the aura of an actor. Even before going abroad, Sun Wan never had the chance to see Xing Jinyan once. Even once, I only saw his figure from afar. It is precisely because of this that she became wary of Xing Jinyan's kindness towards her. The man didn't speak immediately, just looked at Sun Wan with his beautiful and delicate peach blossom eyes, and no one could resist the tremendous impact this face brought. Being stared at by him like this, Sun Wan's small face burned with excitement. Just when Sun Wan thought he wouldn't admit it, he suddenly heard Xing Jinyan chuckle softly. Sure enough, I can't hide Nuanyuan. His voice was very soft, like a feather sliding over the tip of his heart, making Sun Wan feel itchy. Xing Jinyan lifted his eyes and looked over. Nuanyuan's guess is correct. I did approach you with a purpose. I want to terminate my contract with my current agency and sign in under Yuan. What do Nuanyuan think? As his words fell, Sun Wan felt even more incredulous. Do you want to sign into my company's staff? Just now, she did joke at the dinner table that if she wanted to sign someone, she had to sign someone like Xing Jinyan, but that was just to crack down on belittling Su Niao. After all, Sun Wan knows that with the current strength of Yuan, she is not enough to accommodate the next actor. But I remember that your current contract with Tianqing Entertainment has not been terminated yet. If you terminated your contract last time, you should have to pay a huge penalty for breach of contract, right? Although it is unclear about the current profit situation of Yuan, Sun Wan knows that she cannot afford to pay the penalty for breach of contract. I'll do it myself. Xing Jinyan's tone didn't sound any ups and downs, as she seemed to have been prepared for it long ago. After the termination of the contract, I will handle all the liquidated damages on my own, and there's no need for the remaining words to help me out, she said, but in this way, Sun Wan became even more incomprehensible. So what are you doing in our afterword for? Whether in terms of strength or resources, Yuan is far inferior to Xing Jinyan's old employer, Tianqing Entertainment. I hope to gain 100% autonomy in my work after joining Yuan. The implied meaning of this is that only Xing Jinyan can make decisions on all work, and no one else has the right to interfere. Sun Wan naturally doesn't care about these either. However, she always felt a bit strange that with Xing Jinyan's current position, he no longer needed to be constrained by the company. It should be noted that Xing Jinyan has been in the industry for many years and has almost won major awards with soft hands. Sun Wan once investigated that Xing Jinyan's commercial valuation is now conservatively estimated to occupy the top 3 positions in the entertainment industry. A celebrity of this level no longer needs to be bound by the company. She asked cautiously again. If the uncle feels that working in the company is a hindrance, it's better to try setting up his own studio, so that whether it's work or business, he can decide and handle it himself. Many artists choose this path after becoming famous. However, Xing Jinyan gave a bitter smile, with a hint of helplessness in his eyes. Nuanyuan, you also know the situation of the Xing family. Originally, my father was very worried about my poor health. If I left the company to work alone, I would have to follow the agreement and go home to inherit the family business, but I don't like it. He lifted his eyes and looked at her with almost a hint of begging and pity. I've been thinking about it for a while, only you and Yuan can help me with this, Nuanyuan, can you? Faced with his gaze, Sun Wan couldn't say a word of no at all. But she still feels a bit strange about the whole thing. Even if Xing Jinyan really doesn't want to stay in his old employer's house, there are many entertainment companies in China for him to choose from, and both the treatment and resources are much better than those of Yuan. He doesn't have to be interested in his own company. Just thinking that Xing'an wants Su Niao to take over Yuan, perhaps this is a good opportunity for himself. Sun Wan didn't hesitate and smiled in response. As long as uncle doesn't mind my small place here, there should be no problem. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. No intention of being polite. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. No intention of being polite. The two exchanged contact information. The matter of Xing Jinyan joining the company can only be arranged after Sun Wan takes over Yuan completely. She doesn't want to be taken advantage of by Su Niao or Xing'an. Uncle, please keep it confidential before this matter is officially announced to the public. This is not only to prevent malicious people from having ulterior motives, but also to protect the image of Xing Jinyan. Xing Jinyan stared at her for a while and nodded with a gentle gaze. I'll listen to you. He stared straight at Sun Wan with a tingling look in his heart. For some reason, she always felt that Xing Jinyan's eyes had been seen somewhere before, but they seemed somewhat familiar. When leaving the Xing family, Mr. Xing reluctantly held Sun Wan's hand and repeatedly reminded him. Since you've come back, take good care of yourself. If you have nothing to do, come and walk around Grandpa's place more often. If you feel wronged outside, just let Grandpa know and I'll make the decision for you. Mr. Xing's care and love for himself warmed Sun Wan's heart. Since she lost her mother and grandfather, only Mr. Xing has treated her the best. She nodded heavily. Don't worry, Grandpa. I will definitely come to see you more. After bidding farewell to Xing's mother and father, Sun Wan's gaze fell on Xing Jinyan, who had been standing silently behind him. He was tall and upright, and even if he just stood there, his unusual demeanor naturally separated him from the others. Thinking that he would soon become his own artist, Sun Wan smiled warmly at him. "Goodbye, uncle." Xing Jinyan raised a faint curve on his lips and nodded slightly. "Goodbye." Just as she was about to turn around and leave, Sun Wan noticed Su Niao, who was reluctant to part ways with Sheng Yan's eyebrows, and deliberately pushed her wheelchair towards her side. "Niao, my hands are not very comfortable. Can you push me onto the car?" Su Niao's face stiffened as she was busy flirting with Sheng Yan, and she felt a deep hatred for Sun Wan in her heart. In front of the Xing family, she had to disguise herself as obedient and gentle, and could only take the initiative to help her hold the handle of the wheelchair, posing as a good sister. "This is exactly what I should do. Sister, you don't have to be polite to me." Sun Wan sneered in her heart. After thinking too much, she never intended to be polite. Before leaving the site of the Xing family, Sun Wan used the excuse of wanting to take a walk and deliberately took a detour, allowing Su Niao to push her for a while longer. It wasn't until Su Niao was about to lose her temper that she agreed to get into the car. As soon as she left the Xing family, Su Niao's disguised mask couldn't continue to play. "Sister, why did you embarrass me in front of the Xing family?" She almost gritted her teeth and stared at Sun Wan, unable to figure out when this woman had become so eloquent. She had thought that with Sheng Yan's support, Yu Yin could easily fall into her own hands. "I didn't expect Sun Wan to be so difficult to deal with after returning. Not only did I not gain any benefits from her, but I also lost face twice, and even almost caused resentment from the Xing family." Thinking of this, Su Niao's hatred grew stronger in her heart. "Even if you don't like me, sister, there's no need to deliberately satirize me." Upon hearing this, Sun Wan showed a surprised expression. "Is that sarcasm?" She leisurely changed her posture and leaned back in the wheelchair. "Am I not telling the truth? You." This statement once again made Su Niao very angry. She let out a cold snort and didn't want to argue with Sun Wan anymore. She felt proud and thought that she was going home soon, and her parents would definitely help her deal with Sun Wan a tough meal. Sure enough, just as she returned to the Xing family, Su Niao eagerly threw herself into the embrace of her mother Chen Yashin. "Mom!" Before he could say a few words, tears fell down first. Chen Yashin was not very good at her only daughter's treasure, and upon seeing this, she immediately became anxious. "What's wrong with baby Niao? If you have any grievances, tell Mom and let her make the decision for you." Su Niao seemed to have suffered a great deal of injustice. Before she could say a word, tears flowed down her face. Sun Wan lazily yawned, too lazy to look at her artificial appearance in the living room, and went straight back to her room to rest. But she knew that Su Niao would probably not give up easily. Sure enough, in less than half an hour, a servant at home invited her downstairs. "Miss, the master wants you to go down." "Got it." Sun Wan casually responded and deliberately lingered in the bedroom for a long time before slowly pushing the wheelchair downstairs. Sitting on the sofa, comforting Su Niao, Su Minghai immediately roared angrily when he saw her movements so slowly. "It's so slow for you to go downstairs. I don't know what you're doing, you've been away from home for 2 years and it's been so irregular." Looking at the extremely familiar face, Sun Wan felt only irony in her heart. "This is my own father." Although she and Su Niao were both children of Su Minghai, from childhood to adulthood, Su Minghai seemed to only see Su Niao and turned a blind eye to his eldest daughter. This also leads to her having no emotional attachment to her father, Su Minghai. People who sit in wheelchairs on their legs naturally cannot walk faster than ordinary people, but I also want to move faster. Her tone of voice was calm, but in Su Minghai's heart, he always felt that Sun Wan was secretly mocking him and ignoring her leg injury. Whether it's my own daughter or not, I can at least live up to her dignity. Su Minghai's tone softened slightly. If your legs are not convenient, don't run around. They all told you not to go abroad, and even after 2 years of treatment, you haven't seen any effect. It's a waste of money. At this moment, Sun Wan had already pushed the wheelchair slowly to the sofa. Upon hearing these words, the smile on his face became even more sarcastic. I used the inheritance left by my grandfather and didn't waste your money. Su Minghai's face suddenly stiffened. He hates Sun Wan mentioning his father-in-law the most. Every time she mentions the existence of her grandfather, it seems to silently remind Su Minghai that everything he has is obtained through the promotion of his father-in-law. That's also money. You've been abroad for 2 years, why are you becoming increasingly disobedient? Alright, Chen Yashin acted as a mediator at this moment. Nuanyuan has just returned, and there must be some discomfort in all aspects. Don't be so angry either. Her stepmother was quite capable, and in just a few words, she calmed Su Minghai's anger. No wonder shortly after his mother's death, Su Minghai was in a hurry to marry her in. Su Minghai coughed twice and looked solemnly at Sun Wan. I heard from Niao Niao that today at the Xing family, when Xing'an talked about giving the company to Niao Niao, you deliberately mocked Niao Niao in front of the Xing family. Is that the case? Sun Wan calmly glanced at Su Niao Niao with red eyes, and her expression remained unchanged. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Now she really cried. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Now she really cried, is that what my sister said? Sun Wan looked surprised and innocent. I just said 2 words of truth. My sister misunderstood me like this. I didn't mean that. Isn't it just pretending to be innocent? Who doesn't know? After speaking, Su Minghai's gaze instantly turned to him. What did you say? It's just some big truths, Sun Wan said confidently as she sat in a wheelchair. I said she doesn't have the qualifications to take over the remaining voice, and I also said that her current status isn't popular enough. Is that correct? Before Sun Yao could react, Sun Wan even deliberately glanced at her and took the initiative to ask her. I remember the web drama you shot last time had the lowest ratings during the same period, shouldn't you remember correctly? As soon as she finished speaking, Su Nuanyuan, who was still sobbing, suddenly froze. Now she's really crying in anger. Sun Wan. Su Minghai suddenly patted the coffee table and almost gritted his teeth as he called out her name. Is that how you talk about your sister in front of outsiders? Do you still have any sense of brotherhood? On the side, Chen Yashin quickly hugged Su Niao into her arms and comforted her softly. Her gaze occasionally turned towards Sun Wan, although there was a hint of hatred in her eyes. Her words trembled lightly, as if she had been greatly wronged. I know Shaun Wan has always been unwilling to accept Niao Niao, but after all, she is your younger sister. If she has done something wrong, you can tell me and I promise to let her change. But after all, she is in the Xing family. Niao Niao's face is also equivalent to our Su family's face. Upon hearing her words, Sun Wan couldn't help but squint her eyes. My stepmother deserves to have some skills on her. Although she didn't seem to blame me in every word, she silently put a big hat on herself. You should know that what Su Minghai cares most about is the face of the Su family. This statement indeed aroused Su Minghai's anger again. Sun Wan, hurry up and apologize to your sister. Why should I apologize? Sun Wan sat motionless in her wheelchair. Her cold eyes met Su Minghai, and for some reason, seeing the coldness in her eyes, Su Minghai couldn't help but shiver all over. He has a feeling. It's as if the person in front of me is not my obedient daughter, but has become an existence that I can't afford to provoke at all. Su Minghai suppressed the discomfort in his heart and roared at her. How are you asking? You made Niao Niao feel embarrassed in front of the Xing family, and even made us look uncivilized in the Su family. What's wrong if I asked you to apologize? Fortunately, after completing tasks in multiple worlds, Sun-won no longer had any familial feelings towards her father in front of her. Otherwise, if her former self had heard such favoritism, she would probably have felt uncomfortable for a while. But now, as a fast-dressing tycoon, Sun-won only wants to simply and rudely retaliate against such words. Firstly, I didn't embarrass her. It was she who first mentioned taking over Yuin. Yuin is a company that has been passed down from my grandfather's generation, and it means a lot to me. Why should I give it to someone who is not my own sister? After speaking, Sun-won tilted her head and added a sentence with a smile. But as for what you said about lack of education, I do have to admit that if Sun Niao had education, she wouldn't have been unaware that she shouldn't have taken advantage of others' things. As her words fell, the hall instantly fell silent for several seconds. Everyone looked at Sun-won with incredulous eyes. Is this still the same Sun-won as before? In other words, if Su Minghai scolded her for a few words, Sun-won would obediently admit her mistake. However, today she not only never lowered her head, but also silenced them. Even Su Minghai was stunned for a moment, and then he raised the volume with an ugly expression on his face. What are you talking nonsense about? Niao Niao is your own sister. What's wrong with giving her the company? Before Sun-won could even speak, she saw Sun Yao sobbing softly twice and slowly retreating from Qin Yashin's embrace. With weak and innocent red eyes, she glanced at Sun-won lightly, but quickly withdrew her gaze, as if afraid of being scolded by her. This performance made Sun-won couldn't help but want to applaud for her. If Su Niao were willing to put this green tea energy into her work, she wouldn't have acted in one drama after another. Since my sister is unwilling, let's forget about it. I just wanted to help because I saw that Yu Yin's management was not good, but I didn't expect my sister to misunderstand. After a delicate and artificial performance, Su Niao walked up to Sun-won and apologized. Sorry sister, it was me who was rude, but I really just wanted to help. Niao, don't apologize to her. Sure enough, this statement naturally attracted sympathy from Su Minghai. He pulled Su Niao back with a disdainful expression on his face. It's clearly her fault, why are you apologizing to her? After speaking, he gave a brief instruction to Sun-won. I have also seen the afterword of your company, and it has indeed been losing money for the past 2 years. Instead of falling into your hands, it's better to give it a try to Niao, let alone have Shang'an's help. This matter has been decided. Tomorrow, you will go through the procedures and transfer your company to your sister as a studio. Although she had seen Su Minghai's shamelessness for a long time, hearing his words with her own ears, Sun-won was still stunned. Where did he come from to hand over the company left by his grandfather, or did he give it to his stepmother's daughter? Sun-won was almost laughing in anger. Okay, let me hand over the company to Su Niao. Upon hearing these words, Su Niao's eyes lit up instantly, and she looked at Sun-won suspiciously several times, feeling that things were not so simple. Sure enough, the next second saw Sun-won speak with a smile on her face. Since you say they are all family members, you can ignore these things. I remember that the Su family seems to have been losing money recently. Why don't you leave the Su family business to me to manage? I promise I won't disappoint you. Do you think it's feasible? Upon hearing these words, Su Minghai's face turned green with anger. He naturally retorted in a loud voice without even thinking, you dream. Su's is my company, how can I leave it to you to act recklessly? As soon as he finished speaking, he realized that he had fallen into Sun-won's trap. Unfortunately, it's already too late. That's right, Sun-won said with a mischievous smile on her face, similarly, Yuin is also my company. Why should I leave it to Su Niao to make trouble? This statement directly silenced Su Minghai. He looked at Sun-won in shock, not realizing that his eldest daughter, who had always liked to be silent, had only been abroad for 2 years. After returning, she became so eloquent that he couldn't even describe her. How can it be the same? A small aftertaste, how can it compare to the Su family? Su Minghai still spoke hard. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Like a different person. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Like a different person. It's just that Sun Wan was waiting for his words. Oh, yes, Sun Wan's eyes gradually cooled down, looking at Su Minghai without any emotion. After all, the Su family grew stronger with the support of my grandfather and mother. In fact, its development to this day is solely due to the resources left by my grandfather. As her words fell, Su Minghai's face suddenly became extremely difficult to see. When he married Sun Wan's mother Wen Nan, it was like entering the Wen family, and the Wen family did treat him well, helping him establish the Su family enterprise. But after owning his own company, Su Minghai couldn't wait to distance himself from the Wen family. Especially after Sun Wan's mother and grandfather passed away one after another, he annexed all of the Wen family's company and inheritance. Su Minghai, who did these things, disliked it the most because some people said that everything he owned was thanks to the help of the Wen family. And Sun Wan's words undoubtedly offended his scales. Don't talk nonsense. He stared at Sun Wan with both eyes fixed on him, eager to deny everything. The Wen family only provided me with some funds, and it was me who truly developed and strengthened the company. It was my own efforts, and it had nothing to do with the Wen family. The more anxious he was, the more sarcastic Sun Wan felt. She remained calm as before and easily pushed Su Minghai back, who was in a hurry. What about the inheritance left after my mother's death? It has nothing to do with you, right? Su Minghai suddenly froze. Sun Wan remembers clearly about the inheritance. After my grandfather passed away, he left behind many relics for his mother, including company shares and property. However, after my mother passed away due to illness, all of these things fell into the hands of Su Minghai. If it weren't for the fact that Yuan was not of great use to Su Minghai's work, he would probably not have let Yuan go even if he were insane. Sun Wan asked again. My mother once told me during her illness that she would leave her shares in the Su family to me, as well as some of the properties left by my grandfather. But why didn't these things come into my hands and instead you took them all? Whenever she uttered a word, Su Minghai's face became visibly flustered. Feeling guilty, his voice grew louder and he impatiently waved his hand. I don't know about this. Your mother didn't leave so much inheritance before she passed away. According to the division, only the remaining sound is left for you. Besides, you're still a child, why do you want so much inheritance? Sun Wan kept staring at him, naturally not missing the heart and panic in Su Minghai's eyes. She sneered and her calm voice echoed in the air. But now that I have reached adulthood, I have the right to inherit the inheritance left by my mother. Based on the information left by my mother, I believe that the distribution of the inheritance was incorrect. I will request an application to re-investigate and divide my mother's inheritance to see if the facts are as you said. How dare you? Su Minghai suddenly became furious and looked at Sun Wan nervously and anxiously. Why don't I dare? Sun Wan curved her lips, her scrutinizing gaze falling on her. If there are no issues with inheritance distribution, what are you afraid of? Under her gaze, Su Minghai had a feeling of nowhere to hide, as if all the things he had done behind his back had already been known by Sun Wan. No, it's impossible. He comforted himself in this way, thinking that when Wen Nan passed away, Sun Wan was just a child and could not understand anything. Not to mention that she has injured her leg now, how can she fight against herself? What's so scary about me? I'm your dad, and you dare to suspect me. I think you're going against the odds. Su Minghai's aura was on his head, and he raised his hand high, wanting to give Sun Wan a hard slap. But Sun Wan remained motionless. Her gaze was fixed on Su Minghai's hand, and if this slap really landed on her, she would definitely make Su Minghai pay the corresponding price. However, before Su Minghai could swing over, he was stopped by Qin Yashin on the side. "Minghai, don't be impulsive." She grabbed Su Minghai's hand and looked gentle and virtuous, as if she was thinking about him everywhere. "I know you're angry on your head, but Nuanyuan is still a child. No matter how angry you are, you can't take action." Su Nuan watched her performance from the side, motionless. She knows Qin Yashin, who has always enjoyed playing the role of a virtuous wife and mother before Su Minghai. This sudden appearance to stop Su Minghai from hitting her may not be the intention of the drunken man. Sure enough, the next second Qin Yashin looked at herself and said anxiously, "Xiaonuan, I know you have always been unwilling to accept me and Niao Niao, but your father is different. He is genuinely good for you. You have been abroad for the past 2 years, and we don't know who encouraged you to come back like this. But don't worry, we have always been very concerned about you. Surprisingly, we are a family." She smiled gently and affectionately, thinking that it was with this face that Qin Yashin had deceived Su Nuan, who was still young, and made her accept Qin Yashin without any warning. If it weren't for that accident, Su Nuan probably wouldn't have had the chance to know Qin Yashin's true face. Upon reading this, a hint of coldness flashed in Su Nuan's eyes, and she didn't eat her tricks at all. She curved her lips and said, "Is that right? Since Aunt Chen really cares about me so much, why not pay for the medical expenses for treating my leg injuries abroad in the past 2 years?" The smile on Qin Yashin's face suddenly stiffened. "This damn girl, why open your mouth and shut up and ask for money? This. I know Aunt Chen is worried about me. After all, if it weren't for your credit, my leg disease wouldn't have been delayed for so long without recovery. Speaking of which, I really want to thank you." Upon hearing these words, Qin Yashin's face was completely unable to hang. She immediately squeezed out 2 tears and turned her head to look at Su Minghai. "Minghai, Xiaonuan, she misunderstood me." "Su Nuan, how did you talk to your mother?" Sure enough, Su Minghai got angry again, "Apologize now. However, starting from today, Su Nuan will never bow down again." She retorted coldly, "I'm sorry, my mother passed away a long time ago. The woman standing next to you is Su Niao Niao's mother, it has nothing to do with me." After saying these words, she pushed her wheelchair around and was about to leave, completely ignoring the threat from Su Minghai behind. Just before going upstairs, Su Nuan stopped her wheelchair and turned around to provoke the 3 of them with a smile. "Also, I will definitely not hand over the remaining notes to Su Niao Niao. If you want to force me to hand them over in any other way, I don't mind telling the police uncle about your and Qin Yashin's abuse of me over the years." Watching Su Nuan's figure gradually disappear at the end of the corridor on the 2nd floor, the 3 people in the living room looked at each other in confusion. End of this chapter.